So good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Reynolds, and it is my pleasure today to talk with Tasmin Swanson from Baltimore Votes about the historic reactions to this upcoming election. So how are you doing today?
I am probably doing as well as we can be right now. It's fun. It was an exciting day yesterday, and now we're have to just sort of sit and wait for results.
Sure, for sure. So of course, my first big question is, what is your reaction to the presidential election results so far?
I think that the presidential results so far, um, I was a little bit surprised by how soon a lot of the states came in. I think for the last couple of weeks, we've been hearing that between the number of um, mail-in ballots that were going to be counted and the late starts that many states were going to have in actually counting and processing those. I think I, like many people, was expecting that it was going to be at least a couple of days that we were going to hear back from the majority of states. So I've been surprised by how quickly many states have been able to count and process all of their mail-in ballots, or a vast majority of them, and give pretty firm results.
Cool. Does the outcome right now surprise you? The outcome of how the election is going so far?
I I'm not sure. I think that this has been a pretty wild year, with a lot of changes going on. Obviously, dealing with COVID. I think I'm personally a little bit surprised. Although if this had been pre-COVID, I think this is sort of where I thought things would be. After COVID, I did think that and after everything that was going on over the summer with like the rise of Black Lives Matter protests and like growing support, and just changing national conversations, I think I was expecting something slightly different, but we've still got a lot of time. I think a couple more days until we're going to have firm results from across the country.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was going next. So you do think that COVID played a huge role in the shift for this presidential election?
I think COVID changed the way that the election was run. The scale of vote by mail that we saw at this election was unlike anything that we've had before, both here in Maryland, but then also across the country. There were more states that had um, not only increased vote by mail, but other alternative forms of voting, like the drive-through curbside voting in Texas, that was just talked about in the courts. The increase in early voting options, the shift to more early voting and mail voting for voters across the states. We've seen a lot of shifts directly because of COVID.
Cool. So other than that, do you think there were any more big shifts that kind of changed the outcome of this election so far, like leading up to the outcome?
I mean, over the course of the summer into the fall, apart from COVID, apart from the changes uh, in this way that people were voting, I mean, I do think that we've had protests going on all summer, increased support for Black Lives Matter movement, and an increase in civic engagement and civic awareness across all demographics, and especially among younger voters. We were seeing really high levels of turnout on college campuses, and like conversations going on all over the country. So I think that a big change that I think I've seen like on social media and elsewhere is like young people's willingness to talk about the election and like come down strong with this is what I believe, and really get engaged in politics in a way that I think in previous elections is sort of like, oh yeah, I'm voting, but like, I don't know if I'm going to talk that much about it. This year it was, dominating conversations, I think.
So what do you think what do you hope or think will happen in the next few weeks?
I hope that every state follows through with um, with counting every single vote that was cast. Um, I think we're going to have to watch uh, court cases either at the, state level or potentially cases that are going to go all the way to the Supreme Court to decide the outcome of individual ballots or of, a small handful of ballots in different states. We saw the Supreme Court just, I believe it was last week, say that like in Pennsylvania, for example, uh, mail-in ballots that arrived after yesterday, after election day, up until November 6th, could still be considered arriving in a timely manner and could still be counted. But the Pennsylvania was told to keep those mail-in ballots that arrived after the election in a separate place. Like they can still count them, but they have to store them separately. So that's going to make it easier for those ballots to be challenged and potentially overturned. So I think we're going to have to pay really close attention to that. As my hope is that every ballot that was cast in good faith by a voter anywhere in the country is going to be counted. That we're going to stand by the tenets and values that our country says it holds, and try to make sure that every voter has their voice heard. And yeah, I think we're in for at least a couple days, if not a couple weeks, of changes, of court battles, and of a sense of uncertainty. But I think that just like we saw in the Baltimore mayoral race in the primary, we saw, on election night, the results looked one way. A couple days later, they had shifted differently based on counting more ballots as they came in, counting the mail-in ballots and making sure that every voter was accounted for. We could see that play out on a national level as well. So just, hoping that everyone, voters, election officials, candidates, stay calm, trust in the process, and that we carry it through correctly and accurately.
Just on a voter scale, overall, were you pleased with the outcome of Baltimore?
Yeah, so Baltimore, I think what was really remarkable was the number of absentee and mail-in ballots that were cast. So in Baltimore, over 150,000 mail-in ballots were requested and sent to voters. So far, as of November 2nd, 76% of them had been returned, and so that number doesn't include all of the ones that were returned to drop boxes on election day, or the ones that were postmarked before election day and have up until next week, the 13th, in order to be returned. So we're going to see that number continue to rise. We're going to see Maryland's, Baltimore in particular, but also Maryland as a whole, mail-in ballot numbers continue to rise. Baltimore had great early voting turnout. There were, I think, 49,000 people who voted early in Baltimore. So that's another great number. So that means that, total 170,000 votes were cast before election day, which is pretty remarkable. And then there were an additional 34,000 votes cast on election day. Now that's like a little bit lower than in election days on the past, but so much turnout was happening in advance. So these numbers aren't final because we don't know how many more mail-in ballots are still going to wind their way to the Board of Elections before the 13th. But so far, Baltimore has hit and surpassed 50% turnout, which I think is, a testament to how much people in the city care about their city, wanting to vote in local elections, and being, hyper civically engaged and aware, both locally and nationally. So I think it's been, a great showing here in Baltimore.
So, anything else you'd like to share with us about the election in 2020?
I think it's been the 2020 election has been full of ups and downs. And I've been consistently impressed by everyday voters who have navigated the challenges uh, and been willing to go to extreme lengths to make their voices heard here in Baltimore, but also nationwide. We've seen long lines, people overcoming all different sorts of hurdles. That's not a long line. I feel strange applauding because that of course means that there's something wrong with the system in place that would create the situation where a long line could form. We should have ample polling sites. We should have make it easy for people to vote and make it convenient. But for the people who did, overcome barriers that were set up both intentionally and unintentionally, that has been just remarkable to watch, to witness, and hopefully in some small way, Baltimore Votes has helped to, increase voter engagement, voter awareness here in Baltimore, and voter education. So, yeah, it's been a remarkable election. It's not over yet. We've still got more time, both here in Baltimore. There are more ballots coming in, so we might see local races shift a little bit. And nationally, we've got at least a couple of days, probably Friday is the earliest that we're going to hear back from states like Pennsylvania. And definitely Pennsylvania, it's going to be until Friday. Some of the other states in the next couple of days, but then we're going to see probably weeks of litigation, of potential recounts. So it's about trusting in the system, knowing that taking time to count every vote is actually very important. And the fact that we don't have results yet, we don't have conclusive results yet, is proof that our system is working and that our election officials and administrators are hard at work to make sure that every vote does count.
Wow. So I just want to say thank you, Tasmin. You gave me a great interview. I know it's probably real hectic and busy right now. So I thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to me this morning.
No, absolutely. Anytime. These are such important conversations and a lot happening right now. Thank you for taking time and reaching out. So I appreciate it.